Hello and welcome back to the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel, and indeed welcome back to the TBM 930 World Tour. It's been a few weeks since I've done one of these videos and it felt like a good time to do another one and pick up our journey through South America. Last time in episode 9 we travelled down from Florida to Havana in Cuba and to Kingston in Jamaica, and then crossed over the Caribbean Sea to make it to South America here in Caracas. Today we've got a long journey ahead. I've broken it up into different chapters, so feel free to click through the bits you'd most like to watch. We're going to be travelling from Caracas all the way down to Rio de Janeiro, stopping off at Angel Falls, stopping off at Manaus, and stopping off at Brasilia en route. Brasilia is the capital city of Brazil, and then we're going to be rocking up at Rio de Janeiro at the end of this video. But for now we're just doing a quick bit of sightseeing over Caracas, a city founded in 1567, which is the capital city of Venezuela, and is located right near the Caribbean Sea, although separated from the coast by a steep 2,200 metre mountain range, and that's going to make an interesting departure as we head out in the TBM 930 this morning. We've got a nice early start on. This is the dawn light, which we see breaking through beautifully here. So let's get in the cockpit, let's turn on the engine, and let's take to the skies. So let's get underway and get the TBM 930 all set up and ready to fly. To start with, we're going to close the doors, obviously. It's nice to have these doors now on the TBM. Since my last video on the TBM World Tour, we have added a mod onto the flight sim which includes these doors, among many other improvements, which is great. So close the doors and make sure the nav lights are on, which they are, and we're going to turn on the auxiliary boost pump, and then we're going to turn on the engine starter. There we go. And when the NG reaches 13, I'll put the throttle lever to low idle. So let's take a quick look at our route today. As I say, we are flying down to Manaus in Brazil. So this is a long flight, and we're going to go via Angel Falls, which is just near a place called Canaima to the south of Venezuela. So to start with, we're going to take off on runway 29, and we're actually going to head to the north of the city and out over the coast to a waypoint called Osmar, and then follow the coast for a short while and then start heading south. When we get to Canaima, we are going to start descending, and we are going to try and find the falls themselves and fly past them. But we will then climb back up to altitude and continue our journey down towards Manaus. Back in the cockpit, we have got a few more bits to do, so we'll turn on the bleed, and we're going to turn the auxiliary boost pump to automatic, we'll turn the fuel selectors to automatic, test the shift button, turn on the AP trims, and we're going to turn on the pitot heats. We'll give the inert sep a quick blast, and we'll test the controls, make sure they're all calibrated correctly, which they appear to be. And we are going to just feather the prop twice. I'm also now just going to turn on the taxi lights, and with that I'm happy that we are ready to go. So parking brake can go off, and we're just going to do a little loop around here to the right. Very beautiful, all the scenery in the background there. and it's a very early start we've got here today. So it hasn't long been daylight. You have a floating plane over there. So we're going to be taking off on runway 29, heading out over the city and then up to the coast. We're going to be climbing up to flight level 290 on our flight down to Manaus today. I'm going to go to the end of the runway because we are quite heavy. We have got a full fuel load, as you can see just on the middle screen here. That's because flying down to Manaus in Brazil is a long flight for a TBM 930. So we need to make sure we've got enough fuel in the tank to get us there. I'm also conscious that if we're going to be descending around the Angel Falls area to take a look at the falls, we're going to have in effect two full climbs. So I've got extra fuel on board to cater for that as well. So I'm going to get the flaps out now, ready for takeoff. Hit inerts up again just before we head off, and I'm going to turn on the landing lights and I'll turn on the strobes as well. Also, as you might just see flickering there, we have some rather good strobe lights now on the TBM, which look great when it's dark. They kind of illuminate the ground, and so on. It looks really good. Okay, so here we go. Fast checks, and away we go. Let's throttle up. As usual, we have a rotate speed of around 90 knots. Oh, I can feel the extra weight in this aircraft. That is a sluggish takeoff for a TBM. Okay, positive rate and gear up. Gear up selected. And gear up indicated. Flaps in. So as you can see, looking at the middle screen, our route plan suggests that we take a right-hand turn straight out to the waypoint Osmar. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to be doing that because I'm going to have a rather catastrophic collision with some pretty mountainous terrain. Okay, I'm going to engage the autopilot now, maintaining our current heading and climbing up to flight level 290 at our current speed, or thereabouts. So it's going to be 140, let's just take that down a little bit, we'll take it down to 140 knot climb. So farewell to Caracas. my first and only visit to this capital city on Flight Sim. Just got the weather radar on momentarily just to see if there's any red spots in these clouds, but it looks okay. And we're now also getting clear of the mountainous terrain on our right hand side. So I'm now going to turn right. Down there is the international airport. That's beautiful. It's really, really lovely. So farewell to the Caribbean Sea. We are now going to be heading south, and the next time we see water, well, certainly a large body of water, we're going to be down in Rio de Janeiro. What I'm now going to do is stick in a direct to Osmar. This early morning light is absolutely beautiful. I'm flying this in real time, so it's now late morning in the UK and early morning in Venezuela. It's really, really beautiful to see the scenery of Caracas in this light. Okay, so we're through 10,000 feet now, so I'm going to turn off the landing lights. Also turn off the access light as well. And I will now time-lapse the flight until we get a little bit closer in to Angel Falls. Welcome back to the flight. We are now approaching Angel Falls. We've just got a little bit further to go. It's just kind of round the corner from where we are right now. let me start by saying that this has taken some finding, because the maps, whether you use Google Maps, whether you use Sky Vector, anything else, they don't really have a very clear location for where Angel Falls is. I've managed to find it. A lot of Googling required, but there's not much down here. It's a pretty remote area. So it was just a bit of trial and error. And yes, I will be honest and say that I have done a couple of trials to actually find where we need to go for this before stringing it together as part of the TBM World Tour. Angel Falls is one of Venezuela's most popular tourist destinations. Angel Falls are the tallest waterfalls in the world, with a total drop of 979 meters, which is 3,212 feet. But however impressive they may be, they are certainly not easy to get to. And there's been quite a delay in me getting to the next episode of the TBM World Tour, and part of that has been because the weather down this part, in this part of Venezuela, has been so tropical. It's been very difficult finding weather that I can fly through and actually see the falls in. And I do like to fly in real world weather. That's quite important for me. So there's still plenty of cloud around. We're obviously not very far north of the equator here, and it's clearly very tropical. There they are. You can just see them now. We will get a little bit closer in. But yes, we're quite close to the equator, so the climate around here is very tropical, and there's been an abundance of electrical storms which have made it very, very difficult to get down here. But the weather today is not too bad. It's alright. We've had a decent flight down from Caracas, and we can now see Microsoft Flight Sim 2020's take on the world's tallest waterfall. So 975 meters, 979 meters even, right there. They are the falls just there. So I've seen more accurate renditions of things in Microsoft Flight Sim, but since we're in Venezuela, since we're passing through, it's nice to see them in any event. And this landscape is pretty stunning. So it's lush and green, very humid as well, and it's just quite fun flying through this landscape. So you may have just about seen on the time-lapse, what we did a little while ago was we strayed from our flight plan route. So if I just zoom out on the right hand map here, you can see a pink line off to the right hand side. That is our route, which we're now going to pick up again as we continue on to Manaus, which is our next stop. But it's just quite fun exploring this landscape. Really lovely. But also, it's now pretty important that I start climbing, so let's get straight back on with the flight. We're going to now climb back up to flight level 290, 29,000 feet, and we will continue south to Manaus. So, welcome back once again to our flight down from Caracas. We are now just a few miles to the north of Manaus in Brazil. So we are now south of the equator. We've come all the way from the top of South America right the way down to the Amazon now. And Manaus is in fact the capital of the vast Brazilian state of Amazonas. And in doing so, we have crossed the equator. The weather out there again remains very hot and humid, but ironically, going through some clouds just a short while ago, we had a bit of ice on the wings, which is obviously nothing unusual for certain cloud types, but it just seems quite ironic when you're flying close to the equator to have that happen. So Manaus is one of the biggest cities in this part of the world. It's got a population of around about 2 million. And it is where you have the convergence of two rivers, so the Negro River and the Solimões River. I'm not quite sure how that's pronounced. Once again, I have said this before on this channel, but my Spanish is terrible. And these two rivers converge, and the combined tributaries then form the Amazon River. And we're going to see if we can take a look at that. That's the main international airport down there. As usual, on the TBM World Tour, we will not be landing in the conventional international airport. We're going to be landing at Manaus Air Base, which is just to the south here, not very far down at all. Yes, so where these two rivers meet and form the Amazon River, that is called the meeting of the waters, and it's meant to be quite a visual spectacle. It might not be seen on flight sim, it might all just be the same kind of water, but it's still interesting to go and see where the Amazon River is formed. So after this, we'll be heading into the Amazon proper, as in the Amazon rainforest that is, and heading down into, heading south of here, we're going to be heading down to Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, and heading right over the dense rainforest. So here is the Rio Negro. So I assume that's the Black River, and then just over there is the Rio, here we go again, how do I pronounce this? The Rio Solimões. And where those two rivers combine, just over to our left here, is where the Amazon River forms. Just going to keep descending for the moment. Still got it on autopilot so I can make the most of enjoying the scenery. And our airport is just over on the left-hand side here somewhere. Not quite sure where, but it's just right down at the end, at the southernmost point of the city. So it's over there somewhere. We will go and have a look for that shortly. Just want to see the rivers to start with. So there we go. That is where the two rivers converge. The meeting of the waters. and this body of water just heading off in front of us is then the mighty Amazon River. And there, I think, is our airfield just on the left-hand side. So not the longest flight I've ever done by any means. It's about 3.5 hours down from Caracas, but a pretty significant flight for the TBM. We haven't used a full tank of petrol, but I wouldn't want to take it too much further from here, particularly given we've got a lot of remote areas in this part of the world, so I'd be a little bit concerned about heading off into the Amazon with, looks like about a third of a tank, I guess. It's great to see the Amazon River, albeit in a virtual way. I've never been to this part of the world. I would love to go, and it's just nice to get to see it. Again, it's that escapism which virtual pilots get to enjoy when they sit at their computers, like I do, and do their fake flying, as I call it. There we are, that's where the Amazon River starts. Let's now turn to the north and see if we can find our airport. It's not too windy out there, just a light breeze coming from the west at 5 knots. And I know that the runway we're planning to land on runs east to west, so let's just zoom right in now, and you can see this little pink dot over on our left hand side. That is the airport we're planning to land into. It's really bright out there, I can't really see anything. I think it's just over here, but that is, yeah, it is really sunny. Let's disconnect the autopilot. I have control. And I'm going to turn to what is going to be a rough intercept heading. There's no ILS at this airport. Again, this is the fun of the TBM World Tour. We like going to places which you wouldn't be able to get a 777 or a Dreamliner into. Oh, wow. Okay, that was just a guess, right? And it is right in front of me. You would have thought there was an ILS the way I've locked onto that runway heading. I just want to stress, though, that that is pure luck. There is no judgment really involved in that at all. But you would think I'd done this dozens of times before.
Landing gear.
Okay, let's get the gear down, so turn off your damper as well. Okay, gear down and indicated. Okay, get the flaps out. Our approach speed in the TBM is about 85 knots. So slowing down nicely here. And landing flaps. I'm not sure if there are PAPI lights at this airport. If there are, I can't see them. But we will just do this completely visually. City of Manaus over to our right hand side here. And what we're going to do, as I say, is just land, have a break, refuel the aircraft, and then we're going to be heading off to Brasilia and Rio de Janeiro.
500.
Happy with this approach so far? Coming below the tops of the trees now, which is always quite an interesting experience when you're flying. And there we go, just power it down until it's had enough. Very nice, there we go. Good. Stopped in time to pull off here. It's just what we wanted. We can head over to the fuel box, I think. Welcome to Manaus. There we go, let's shut the plane down after its long flight. It deserves a break. Turn off the bleeds, turn off the pitot heats. Can turn off the auxiliary boost pump. Fuel selectors back to manual. Ignition off. AP trims off. Strobes off. Landing lights off. Pulse lights can go off as well. And shut down the engine. And for good measure, let's get that door open. So it's really not long since we landed, just taking a quick break before we head off to Brasilia, but there's been quite a rapid deterioration in the weather. You can see a few bits of blue sky peeking through there, but there has been an electric storm come over. So what I'm going to do is basically get out of Manaus whilst we still can. So I've got the plane pretty much set up here, just a few last bits. So turn on the pitos, turn on the bleeds. Auxiliary boost pump to automatic. Fuel selectors to automatic. Turn on the AP trims. Turn on the taxi lights. And I think we're all set to go. So I'm going to do a U-turn here. The wind is now coming... Well, it's coming from the south a little bit, so we're going to be taking off in a slight crosswind, but that's okay. What I'm going to do as soon as I've taken off is turn towards the east into that blue sky, and we'll navigate back to our flight route, our planned flight route here, which you can see in the middle screen, just as soon as we're able to do so. So just get the flaps set for takeoff. We are again very heavy here. This is going to be a slightly longer journey down to Brasilia. So once again we have both fuel tanks filled to capacity. Quite an interesting little airfield, this. So this is an airbase just at the southern tip of Manaus. But there's lots of different bits to it, tucked away in the trees. As you can see, so it's just... It is blowing from the south, but just about blowing towards the east. So this, I think, is the right way to take off in the circumstances. Okay, but the weather is now in front of us. What I'm just going to do is reduce down the altitude I've set into the autopilot here. Let's just go up to 2,000 feet and hold until we can see blue sky again. And once we're clear of this weather, we're gonna climb a bit higher. Okay, so going to take off at a rate of 1,500 feet a minute. We're going to climb up to 2,000 feet. Our takeoff speed or rotate speed will be 90 knots. Right, let's turn on the landing lights, turn on the other lights, and let's get out of here. Let's avoid this weather as quickly as we can. Getting really heavy on takeoff. Normally, when you pull the nose up on the TBM, it jumps off the runway, but I can tell I've got a lot of extra weight on here at the moment. Okay. So let's just engage the autopilot straight away. And I'm going to do an abrupt turn 180 degrees because we don't want anything to do with these clouds ideally. Even 2,000 feet is going to be too high, I think. Going to bring the flaps in. I don't even put the weather radar on, to be honest, because it's just going to be so solidly red, I expect. There we go, there's some blue sky, that's what we want. Let's get back into the clear weather. Okay, we're approaching 2,000 feet. I'm comfortable, we can now go a bit higher. So let's put it into flight level change mode, and I'm just going to make this quite a quick climb as well. Let's put it down to about 120 knots. So that really gives us a sharp rate of ascent. There we are. And now I'm not in the worst of it. That's it. Right, I knew I was in fairly thin cloud, that the blue sky was out here somewhere. So I think we've just got out in the nick of time. Just looking over. So we are looking to turn right, so we're heading south. But I think for the moment I'm just going to keep going straight so that we're heading into blue sky and relatively calm weather. Okay, after takeoff checks, I'll just get the inerts up a quick blast actually, and just check for any ice. No, I think we're okay. After takeoff checks, so gear is up selected and indicated up, flaps are in, we are still on local pressure on the altimeter. Yeah, all good. You can see, I think we landed in the weather that we're now flying over, where it's a bit clearer. I think the storm perhaps came from somewhere behind us. Of course, this is very realistic for this part of the world, because we are in the tropics. We are not very far south, sorry, of the equator. So it's very hot, very steamy, and of course we're about to fly over an enormous rainforest. So I guess this is what one might expect flying in these parts. I just want to try and get past this next big cloud here, if I can, before turning to the south. Maybe I don't. Let's go direct to Vacus and see how we go on. Yeah, that's not towering cumulonimbus, is it? I think that's okay. We've still got a really good rate of climb here. So once again, looking down at the meeting of the waters there, where the Amazon River is formed. And yeah, you can see how the airport that we landed at, which is just down there somewhere, has got obscured by some pretty ugly looking clouds. So this is going to be quite a long sector down to Brasilia. Obviously we've got to get across the Amazon rainforest. Oh, nice big bolt of lightning in front of us there. Yeah, so this is going to be a big chunk of South America that we're going to cover on this next flight as we continue our journey down to Rio. I'll time-lapse it again, and I will speak to you in a few moments' time once we are near Brazil's capital city. Welcome back to the flight. We are now on approach into Brazil's capital, Brasilia. Descending down initially to 9,000 feet. We're currently at 19,000 feet. We've got about 70 odd miles left to go. So after we took off from Manaus, we managed to escape the storms, or certainly we managed to fly above the storms, but the storms were still raging across much of the Amazon rainforest, and it was fantastic to get the drone out and go right down and see this unending series of trees and jungle and rivers and all sorts. It just went on and on and on as far as the eye could see. Just absolutely spectacular. I've never been to South America in real life, and I can only say I've been there on flight sim. To actually see the Amazon rainforest in that kind of level of detail was something else. And I think not only just to see it in terms of the graphics and to see the trees and the vegetation just going on and on and on as far as the eye could see, I think also seeing the kind of climatic effect of the live weather was sensational as well. So a series of big thunderstorms, and you could almost feel the humidity flying through that. Then at the far end, a slightly less happy story, I suppose. When we came out of the Amazon rainforest, I was looking down and could start to see these big blocks cut into the forest, which had clearly been cleared, and where you could see the effects of deforestation. And I took a sort of a panoramic view just at the end there, once we were in an area where the Amazon rainforest presumably should be, presumably once was, and now is just sort of an open area, a victim of deforestation on a simply eye-watering scale. So a really, really interesting trip down on the TBM 930 World Tour. We have visited quite a variety of places now. We've been, to Iceland and Greenland. We've been to big cities like Chicago, Toronto, and New York. We've been to Florida and Caribbean and all sorts of different places. It's been amazing to see it all in that detail. I think the Amazon rainforest will be one of my favourite bits of the tour. It was, and obviously I had to film it at normal speed. I sped it up and time-lapsed it for the purposes of the video, but I had to film it at normal speed, and it was surprisingly quite cathartic. It was quite relaxed just to watch the forest unravel over mile after mile after mile. And indeed, the bit that I filmed for this video was pretty short in the grand scheme of things. So this has been a long flight down, partly because of the weather. There was just not going to be anywhere I could get a decent shot at landing whilst we're in the Amazon, and as a result we've come on down to Brasilia. We're going to be landing in the international airport at Brasilia in just a few moments' time. But this has been a long flight. It's been a solid 4 hours or so down from Manaus. But it gets us a really big chunk of the way through South America. It's been quite a journey today, down from Caracas, seeing Angel Falls in southern Venezuela, then down to Manaus, and then through the Amazon, and now we're in Brazil's capital. The next stop after this is Rio de Janeiro. So Brasilia was inaugurated as Brazil's capital only in 1960. It now has one of the highest GDPs in all of South America, has a population, a sort of total urban and metro population of about 4.2 million people, and covers nearly 6,000 square kilometres. is also a designated World Heritage Site because it was a planned city. It was first developed in 1956 in a Brazilian scheme to move the capital from Rio de Janeiro to a more central location, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, this flight has done nothing if not given me a sense of the sheer scale of this beautiful country. And yeah, it was inscribed as UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987 to mark its modernist architecture and unique urban planning. Apparently, the city's design divides numbered blocks into specific activities. So you have the hotel sector, the banking sector, the embassy sector, and so on. All three branches of Brazil's federal government are based in the city. So you have the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And it has all the embassies. And the airport we're going to be landing into in a few moments' time is Brazil's third busiest airport. So coming back in into the rain a bit here. Just going to start getting us ready for landing. Just conscious I don't have great visibility here, and I'm very unfamiliar with the territory, so I just need to be quite careful. What I might just do is stick on the terrain. The terrain map over here, just so I can be aware of any terrain obstacles should I come across them. So you can also get a sense of just how far we've flown here in the TBM by looking at the fuel tanks here in the centre screen. So we are now pretty low on fuel, and we started with a full tank up in Manaus. I think this might be my longest flight of all time in the TBM 930. Getting some nice scenery over here. And as to say, the weather on Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 is just amazing. So I've been doing a lot of flying recently again on Prepare 3D V5, been doing a lot of airliner flying. Took a bit of a break from the TBM 930 World Tour. And one of the first things that strikes me as soon as I get back into Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 is the weather. It just looks so much more realistic. Overcast cloud has always been quite tricky to get right on flight simulators, but this really feels right. And when it's really bright, you get the glare, and when it's really cloudy, it gets quite dark, and so on. All of that authenticity comes through in the weather. Kind of affects the mood of the landscape you're looking at as well, which is quite special. It kind of feels threatening if you're flying through a thunderstorm, but the dawn light leaving Caracas earlier on today felt really, really picturesque. Felt kind of positive leaving in this lovely sunlight and all that. It's just so well done. And this, incidentally, is just the default live weather on Microsoft Flight Sim itself. I also have Rex WeatherForce 2020, so if I need to use METAR-based real-world weather, I can use that. But I do find the default weather engine is great. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's as good as Payware on anything else, if not considerably better. So we're approaching Cogno, which will lead us into the ILS 11 left approach. I'm just going to make sure that I have the right frequency in here. So I'm still up at 6,000 feet here, but this feels low enough for the time being. Just looking on the right-hand map over here, there's a few green spots appearing where there's some slightly higher terrain. It's all fine for the time being, but I don't think we need to go too far below to 6,000 at this point. Once we get over this lake over here, we're going to be heading towards Movdo, which is the next waypoint, and that will be where we'll join the final approach into 11 left at Brasilia. So I am on VATSIM, but there's nothing else flying around this area. There was a departure, just looking at my VATScope map on my iPhone. There was a recent departure out of Brasilia, but nothing else coming in at the moment. Now I can see some lights in the distance there, so I'm going to assume that that is the airport. It's got to be, right? Yeah, that's the airport over there. So I've now got a visual reference. What I'm just going to do here is do a direct to, because we seem to be heading off track a little bit here. Oh, no, I'm going back to Cogno now. I don't want to do that. Movdo, that'll do. Let's go there instead. Direct to, activate.
Landing gear. Landing gear. Landing gear. Landing gear. Landing gear.
See if I can pick up the ILS. There we go, that's what I want. So, not the most elegant of approaches so far, but we're lining up okay now. Okay, I have had this before where I just cannot get the autopilot to line up on the localizer. Doesn't really matter because it's easy enough to fly a manual approach in the TBM, I find, but it can be quite annoying, particularly if you're in bad weather. I don't know if I'm getting something wrong here, but I was expecting if I just press the approach hold button it would then activate. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try turning off altitude hold and heading hold and seeing if that works instead. Nope, nothing doing there either. So I'm going to turn off the autopilot in that case. And I will just hand fly it. I'm going to slow down too much right now. I'm going to keep the speed up here at about 150 knots. We've still got a few miles to fly. We've got a 12-mile final here, so don't want to be creeping in at 85 knots just yet. I can see the localizer starting to come on here, so sorry, the glide slope starting to come online here, so I will start to descend a little bit. Trying to think, it's a while now since you've been to a full-on international airport on the TBM 930 World Tour. You've been to a lot of smaller airports off the beaten track. I think perhaps the last bigger airport we went to was Naples in Florida. Before that, Kissimmee, I guess, as well, and Teterboro. But in terms of major international airports, there have hardly been any.
Landing gear, landing gear, landing gear, landing gear, landing gear.
I will now put the gear down. So gear down selected. and indicated. Still 5 miles to go. So now I'm going to pull back on the speed. I still don't even have the flaps out, so I ought to get cracking with those as well. There we go.
500.
And capture V ref at about 85 knots. There we go. Very nice. Pleased with that. So just coming in fractionally shallow. There we go. Back on the glide slope. Now we just need to find a taxiway off to the right. So flaps in. Turn off the pitot heats now. Okay, we'll exit on Charlie. Good stuff, and we can now turn off the landing lights. I'll turn off the pulse as well, and turn off the strobes. So we're going to pull up here for this evening, and we'll complete this episode of the TBM 930 World Tour with another flight tomorrow down to Rio de Janeiro, which is nowhere near as long as the flight down from Manaus today. It's at least half the distance, if not more. just going to pull it up here. This looks as good as anywhere. Okay, so here we are in downtown Brasilia, and looking at the layout here, it's quite clear to see that it's a designed city, or a planned city, I suppose. I'm not very familiar with this city at all, so I'll leave it to the experts to tell me what I'm seeing here. But this certainly looks like the main core of the city centre. So this stadium just over on the right hand side, it looks a little bit wonky, but that is the Brazilian National Stadium, and that played a part in the World Cup a few years ago. Over to the side of the National Stadium, it looks like there's some kind of racetrack. Not sure what that is. Oh, there's another small airport there. Interesting. We could have landed there. Oh well. In any event, it doesn't look to be a really huge kind of downtown area. And there's lots of parks. There's this huge park over here, which is the Brazilian National Park. So quite an interesting place. And one thing which I find quite striking is this kind of red colour to the soil. So this is the capital of Brazil. You saw it here first, maybe. Maybe you've been there in real life. I know I haven't. Okay, so let's take to the skies and head down to Rio. We're all set up and we're lined up on runway 11 left here at Brasilia. We're going to take off, turn to the right and head south down to the South Atlantic coast and to Rio de Janeiro. Now we're a lot lighter on this flight than we were on the previous couple of flights down from Caracas, because we don't need anywhere near as much fuel, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how different it feels on takeoff. Again, our rotation speed is going to be around about 90 knots, so I'm just going to pull back gently there. Oh, that's completely different. That is completely different to what it was taking off from Manaus and from Caracas. Okay, gear up selected. Farewell to Brasilia. Let's start turning to the south and we'll pick up our planned flight route now. Flight time down to Rio de Janeiro should be around about an hour and a half, but as always I'm going to now time-lapse the cruise, so we will get there in just a couple of minutes. Enjoy the ride. So, welcome to Rio de Janeiro. We have made it down from Caracas all the way to Rio via Angel Falls, Manaus and Brasilia. From the Caribbean Sea on the Venezuelan coast right down to the South Atlantic, and the beautiful sights that we can see emerging on our left hand side here of Rio de Janeiro. So at the moment we're just over the Baía de Sepetiba, and Barra de Tijuca is just coming up on our left hand side. It's just along this next stretch of the coastline, and then after that it is Rio. So Rio is just behind the hills that we can see in the distance there. Pretty quick flight down from Brasilia, just an hour and a half or so. And we're also now seeing this in a lovely kind of sunset light. So we're quite fortunate as well to be approaching Rio from the west. I have actually left the strict flight plan at this point just so we can get the most of the scenery. But we are approaching down the western side of Rio, which means that we're going to get to see Christ the Redeemer, we're going to get to see Copacabana Beach, we're going to get to see Sugarloaf Mountain, and then we'll cut in to land at runway 02 right at Santos Dumont Airport. This has been by far the longest episode of the TBM 930 World Tour so far, but it's been quite an exciting and varied and dramatic journey with a lot to enjoy. We've left Caracas, where it felt close to the Caribbean. Obviously, it felt close to the Caribbean islands. It felt fairly close to Florida in the United States. This feels a very, very different place altogether. We're now many, many hundreds of miles south, and in getting here we've seen the remoteness of Angel Falls. We've also seen the drama of the Amazon rainforest, along with the Brazilian capital, and now perhaps what one might feel is still Brazil's cultural capital, Rio de Janeiro. As we said when we were coming into Brasilia, Brasilia was inaugurated as Brazil's capital only in 1960. Before that, the capital was Rio. And I suppose a little bit like, in Canada, Ottawa is the capital, but Toronto's the biggest city. And in Australia, you've got Canberra as the capital, but Sydney's the biggest city, and so on and so forth. There's a bit of that, I think, with Brazil as well. That everyone thinks of Rio as being the city of most significance when they think about this enormous country. I think that's one other thing, incidentally, which this particular episode of the TBM 930 World Tour has demonstrated to me, is that Brazil is just vast. It's just huge. So this is Barra de Tijuca on the left-hand side. Again, I apologise for my pronunciation. And then just round the corner here, we're going to start to see a few familiar sights as we get closer into Rio. I think I can now see Sugarloaf Mountain. So this beach just down here on the left-hand side is Ipanema Beach, I think. Actually, I don't think that is. I think that's Sao Conrado. And then the next one will be Ipanema, and then Copacabana. Naturally, if it weren't for copyright issues on YouTube, I'd be sticking on some Barry Manilow at this point, but we'll have to live without. Yeah, so over here you can just see that's of inland lake, and the beach in front of that is Ipanema Beach, and just behind that, there we go, we can see Christ the Redeemer up there on the hill, just up there. So we now know we are definitely in Rio. Then there's Copacabana Beach and Sugarloaf Mountain just beyond that. Okay, there's Copacabana. Again, Christ the Redeemer up there, look, on the top of the hill, standing out against the sunset. And we can also now see our airport. It's really beautiful. So I'm going off script here in terms of the approach procedure. I'm just doing it entirely by sight, and I'm just going to turn in now. I'm still on the autopilot, largely just to allow me to enjoy the scenery. Look at that. Right, so the autopilot's going to come off now, and we'll turn off the yaw damper, and I have control.
Landing gear. 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 Landing gear.
Going to be doing a bit of a Hong Kong turn here into 2 right, I think. We're actually going to do a downwind landing here by all accounts, but I just wanted to come in the scenic route, so I'll just have to handle that as best I can. Feels like we're going quite fast. This is going fine. There we are. Power back. And there we go. So we have made it to Rio. And it does feel now like we've come a very long way on the TBM 930 World Tour. It feels quite incredible to think that this tour in this single engine turboprop started just a few miles of where I'm actually sat filming this in real life in Cambridge in the UK. Now here we are in one of the biggest cities in South America. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit subscribe or click the like button or hit the bell so that you get notifications when I put up future videos. I will be returning to the TBM 930 World Tour at some point very soon when we will continue our journey through South America. And I will also, of course, be putting up lots of long and short haul flying on both MSFS 2020 and on Prepare 3D. So we look to serve many different tastes here on the Airborne Lloyd YouTube channel, and there should be something for everyone to enjoy. For the time being, though, I'm going to say goodbye for now, and look out for the next episode of the TBM 930 World Tour very, very soon, when we're going to be heading down the coast towards Sao Paulo.
Oral warning, okay.